For my minister shadowing project, I chose David Bromley to shadow over the course of half a day. David Bromley is an elder and also the administrator at Whites Ferry Road, where I attend, and where I also serve as a part-time youth minister as I'm going through full-time school. David Bromley, along with being an elder and the administrator, has served over a decade's worth of time as a youth minister at Whites Ferry Road, but also as a camp director at Camp Chioka here in West Monroe as well. I fell in love with youth ministry, and so I wanted to take this opportunity to ask David Bromley these questions because I can see myself doing this for many years to come. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did, but I really want to grow in this field so I can become a better youth minister. So I thought there was no better person to do this shadowing project with than David Bromley. He was my youth minister when I was in the youth group, and he was also that camp director the time I went to Camp Chioka. So I know that he has a lot of experience with kids. He had a lot of experience dealing with me, and he was also the one that asked me if I was willing to take on this youth ministry position. So he is somebody that not only has poured into me and invested into me and done that for so many kids, but he also sees potential in me. And so I thought it was a good opportunity to dig inside that brain of his and to ask him these questions so I can gain some really good advice on what I need to be doing as a youth minister. So with that, these are some of the questions that I asked. He was just full of information, and the good news is that we work together, so I can still pick more and more information from that brain of his as I continue going on. But these questions were the questions that I asked, and man, I just learned so much from this experience. The first question was, what was your most difficult thing you had to do for youth ministry? And his answer was much like what I'm discovering now, is that he had to witness the brokenness of all the kids. These kids, especially at our church, with Celebrate Recovery being a big ministry here, we come in contact with a lot of kids that come from some very broken lives. And even those kids that don't come through from Celebrate Recovery, they're dealing with so many things. And he said that it's just so it can be so overwhelming sometimes to witness what these kids are going through, and man, to not feel like you have to be the answer. Sometimes it feels like you have to say the right thing and do the right thing for these kids, or they're going to spiral into a very negative space. And it's he said that the trauma that he has seen and what he has been told by some of those kids was the hardest thing to hear during his time as a youth minister and as a camp director. And he just hated hearing what some of these kids were going through. But he knew that God had put him into that position to help those kids and to direct those kids to the Father, and to show them that they can be redeemed, that they can be saved, that they're not these lowly creations that this world has tried to make them believe that they are. The next question I asked is, what is the best advice that you received? And the best advice that he received was actually really good advice for me as well. He said that the people, the administrators that were over him and that were helping him as he was in youth ministry, stressed that, they gave him lots of advice, and they would tell him how they did things and the things that were successful for them, but that you have to realize that ages change and times move on, and culture changes as time moves on. And so what was successful back in the day might not be successful as it is now. And he said the best advice that he got was that he had to make the youth ministry his own thing, that he can learn from the people that came before him, but he has to learn how to update for what he is, the advice that he's gotten to be relevant to the kids that are attending, and if those things don't match up, then sometimes you got to switch things up. that maybe the person before you wouldn't ever think about doing. But through that, you can find a lot of success. So he said that you have to make it your own. You have to be aware of being relevant and how to adapt the truth, not change the truth, but adapt the truth so that these kids who are experiencing culture as it is right now can hear it and appreciate it and be impacted by it. And man, I just thought that was really good advice that he received, and I took that as advice for me as well. That the things that I hear and what people tell me, it comes from their experience and their successes and their failures, and I appreciate those things. But ultimately, I have to make the decision to say, okay, is this relevant for my kids today? The next question or statement, I wanted to witness how he participated in the ministry of study. And he allowed me to sit in on that. And so he showed me, particularly for youth ministry and what he did, man, he showed me so many books that he had on his library that, man, he went through and he highlighted and he studied and he read, and he just spent time and time. And this is where a lot of his lessons and how we approach the kids came from, is that he spent hours and hours studying the Bible and studying these books about children and about teenagers and about youth ministry. And he said you have to spend time doing this, that without it, that you're not going to have a lot of success as a preacher for young kids. You're not going to know what to talk about. So you have to be in the Word first. The Bible comes first. And then you also have to go out of your way to study when you're not with the kids, that you have to spend time researching and understanding the psychology and the developmental stages of where these kids are at, so that you can approach them effectively, and so that your words aren't meaningless, so that you can do a good job. The ministry of study is so important for youth ministry, and he stressed that, and he showed me that without taking the time to do that, that I'm not going to be as effective as I want to be. I asked him, what are the best resources you have found for preparing a sermon? And he said that while a lot of what he got for his kids was through personal study, that he also had to address the kids about topical issues, especially for youth ministry. There are things that these kids are going through that need to be addressed. And youth ministry is the perfect time to have these topical studies, whether it be about pornography or about dating. He said that if we do not address them, then those are going to be things that are going to be addressed by the world, sexuality, those different things like that. And through our discussion, we have actually been preparing a class, which has started now. We've prepared a class that talks about these topical issues that our children are going through today. Like I said earlier, pornography and sexuality, but also sex and gender identity. We have come up with a class and gathered the material to host a family class that discusses these issues and the answers that we can find about these issues in the Word of God. So through this shadowing, I also got an opportunity to create really a class for the family. So I've been super blessed through asking these questions, and I think it's going to help our church. It's going to help our youth ministry in the long run grow with their families, but also grow in their faith and their knowledge of what the Word says about cultural discernment. I asked him, how does your wife feel about being married to a minister? I know Karen pretty well. That is his wife, and she is this quiet and sweet lady. But she packs a powerful punch. So when I asked this question, he kind of laughed. But she said, while she is different, and while she is quiet, she said that she worked alongside him for the kids and for the girls, that it wasn't just his ministry, that it was their ministry. When they worked in youth ministry, that she would cook for them, and she would make all the food, and she would be there, and she would be that motherly presence that the kids really needed. And that was important for me to hear, because I'm married, and I definitely want to have that atmosphere of where it's not my ministry. First it's God's, but I want it to be our ministry. I want it to be a thing that we do together, and that we work together to progress the kingdom, and to tell the truth to these young kids. Doing it alone I will never find success. But if I bring in my wife and we work together, then and we work with the church and we work with those families, then I can be successful. And I just loved hearing that. And like I said, I love Karen. So knowing that about her and witnessing that as I was in youth ministry, as in high school, I felt how much she meant to him, and their marriage is very important. And it answered later on. It's actually answered in the next question. So I said, "How do you keep your sanity?" And he said, "Well, one, Christ has to be the center of his life, that the ministry can't." And so often that we put ministry first before our personal relationship with God. And he said that can't be how it's done, that we have to commit to our relationship with God first. And then he said, second, I have to commit to my relationship with my wife before my ministry as well. And he said that when we work on our relationship, and I keep her front and center, that we show the kids what marriage is supposed to look like, and how we're supposed to focus on that and our relationship with God as well. That through their marriage and through focusing on that, they really kept his sanity while he was dealing with loving on these kids and handling their issues and growing them in the Lord. He said that through all of that, he needed his relationship with God most, and he also needed his relationship with his wife to be strong as well. I asked him, how would you handle food for the kids? These previous questions, I know that they were sample questions, and I started to ask some of my own. I've come into some issues with food. I've been just getting them Little Caesars pizza over and over and over again. So I finally got a chance to sit down and I asked him. I was like, man, how did you handle food? I don't have as much income as you did when you were the youth minister, but like I don't want to just rely on Little Caesars all the time. He said, yeah. He said pizza is good and cheap. He was like, but it gets old pretty fast. He said that there are meals that I can, well, not me, my wife, I'm a terrible cook, that we can make that is cheap and affordable, but also tastes good. So he said, man, just cook spaghetti, cook some tacos, but don't just rely on purchasing pizza. He said that you want to switch it up, that you want to show the kids that you put in the effort to feed them when you do have food, and that you want to host them and show them what it means to be a good host. So don't just rely on cheap things, but take the time to cook it and to prepare it and to serve it well. And when you do that, whether they realize it or not, it will have an impact on the kids. I asked them, how do I handle fringe kids or kids that leave? There have been occasions in my youth ministry experience where there's these kids that sit to the side, that they never want to talk, or the kids that, they're so popular that they only come every once in a while. They feel like they don't have to be there. And so I asked Bromley, I said, how do I handle these situations? And he said, one, don't take it personally. These kids are going through things, especially with the fringe kids, that when you go up to them, that they might not be comfortable with talking to you at first, and that it might take a lot of time to break through that wall. So don't take it personally. He said that's the number one thing, is that you can't take it personally with the fringe kids or with the kids that leave. That most of the time that it's not about you, and that if you take it personally, you can feel like you're doing a really bad job when you're actually not. There may have been nothing you could have done to keep them there. So it's not always about you. So really don't take it personally. But the other thing he told me is to realize that youth ministry is about making touch points. That that kids will come in and come out of your life and out of that position as you work in youth ministry. And then it's about creating those moments where they can come in and be appreciated when they're there, and be talked to while they're there, and loved on while they're there. But understand that when they cycle out, that through that, they know that they always have a place to come back to, that you can be there for them in the future whenever they need you. So kids are going to leave. He said that's unavoidable. He said, but be that somebody for them that they know that they can always come back to when they need you. He's like, you can't stop them from being awkward or stop them from leaving, but you can show them that you love them no matter what they are or what they're doing. So that was cool, and I definitely well needed. I've had an experience with this certain fringe kid over the past 2 years, but through learning this and also just trying my own things with this kid, I've actually seen this kid grow a lot. From somebody that was too shy, he would have panic attacks in the middle of class, he would have to be escorted out, to now he's laughing and playing ping pong with all the other kids. So it was cool to see, and I told him that story, and he was like, yeah, it's the fringe kids aren't always going to be fringe kids, that through just persistence of showing them love and showing them grace and talking to them, that eventually they will grow, and it might be a slow burn, but they will soon turn into something that maybe you never expected or they never expected either. But God expected it. That God knew that if we poured in and invested in them, that they would experience change. And that's what I saw with that kid. So it was cool to see that advice actually have been working for years now, but only through asking that question did I see that come to my mind. Like, man, yeah, that kid was a little fringe at the beginning. So that was really cool to see. The next question I asked is, what is the most appropriate way to have a relationship with the girls in the youth group? In my youth group right now, we have a lot of girls, and I'm still young. I'm 26, and I really want to be careful with how I approach these girls. And I thought this was a very important question to ask, because I never want to overstep my bounds. And he gave me some great advice and some varied advice as well. He said that it is important to have a relationship with them, but you have to approach it differently than you do the guys. First, you have to have a relationship with their parents, to let them know and to always let them be aware of what's going on, that they're never in questioning your intentions because they know your intentions and they know what you're doing with their kids. But he said, one, if you ask them to eat, or if you want to get to know them a little better, always do that in public, and always do it as a group thing. So instead of just inviting one girl, invite 2 girls. To make it a safer environment, that we're in public. It's not a private thing, but to eat in public and to fellowship together like that, but also having that other girl there provides some boundaries so that those relationships can actually grow. The other thing is to always have my wife with me, if possible. So even in those situations, have my wife just creates another set of boundaries and just a safer environment for me as an adult, but also for them as children, to know that they're safe to discuss what they need to discuss, but also that I have no bad intentions for inviting them to eat and getting to know them a little better. But also that I need to be upfront about my boundaries, that I just need to tell them just honestly and straightforward that I'm not going to do certain things with them because I am a young man, that I can't do certain things with them because I'm a young man, and that I'm never going to do anything that comes across as me coming on to them or me trying to have an inappropriate relationship with them, that I'm going to put boundaries in place and I'm going to tell them about these boundaries so that we know that we're not going to try to cross these as well. But I think the most important advice that he gave me in that situation was just to communicate with the families, to tell them, hey, I want a relationship with your daughter, but I don't want it to ever come across as inappropriate or weird, that I want to have good boundaries in place and I want to work alongside you and with you for us to grow as a whole family and as with me to really make an impact on their daughter's life and for the better, and so that they grow in the Lord and they know that I can be somebody that they can trust and have a good relationship with. I asked beyond just, how do I have a relationship with girls, but how do I give my full attention to all the kids, man? I'm in my youth group right now with middle school and high school. I have about 60 kids post-COVID pandemic. And I was just, man, I want to pour into these kids. I want to be effective for these kids. So how do I do it? I asked him, I was like, how do I pour out my full attention for all of them? And he said, Brandon, unfortunately, you can't. That's not possible. And he said, the best advice and what I found as successful is that, man, I would have contact with, the kids that are just natural to love, that they're energetic and positive. Those kids, you don't have to try as hard. You don't have to lean into as much. That you can give them just a minute or of your time or 2 minutes of your time, and they will appreciate that and they will love that. But he said, really, man, when we talked about those fringe kids, he said, he's like, focus on those outcasts, focus on the ones that are hard to talk to. You have to give them more time and more attention. And he said, when you do that, man, those kids will grow the most from that experience. And so when you focus in on them, and you have to kind of divvy up your time well, but if you see who your outcasts are, you see who those fringe kids are that really need you, and you give them the time that they need, and that the other kids, they don't need as much time, that when you give your attention to the proper place, that you will see success in the growth of your relationships. But he said, Bromley also gave me good advice in that it's not always about what I say or just how much time. A lot of it is about the ministry of presence. That being there for these kids is a really important thing. That it might not be about the discussions you have. They might forget about the sermons and the things that you tell them, but they will remember that you were there for them, that they remember your presence, that they remember you being at the football games or the plays or the dance recitals, that they remember that you being there. And that's what's important. So while attention and conversation is good, he said what's most important, in his opinion, was the ministry of presence for these kids. And so I said, Bromley, how do you measure success? That was my last direct question, I believe. I said, Bromley, how do you measure success? And he told me, he said, that's a really hard thing. He said, with kids in their developmental stages, that sometimes success can be very cloudy, and you can doubt yourself sometimes. But he said, to measure success, the way I measure success is, one, are my kids thinking deeper about God? When I ask them a question, he's like, have I seen a growth in their ability to think a little deeper and to respond to those questions? Is there a growth from never responding, never talking, to, maybe just opening up and sharing what their opinion? Maybe it's wrong. He said, that's okay. But are they opening up to having a conversation about God and about salvation, about Jesus, about the Holy Spirit? And he said, if there is that growth, if you see that growth, then you know that you're on the right track, that you're being successful. He said, but the other way I look at success is to measure my relationship with the family. If kids, sometimes it could be really easy for the kids to fall in love with you, and to just be in love with who you are because you're there for them. You're there to listen to them. He's like, but if their families love you, if their parents also love you, then you know that you're making these relationships that are successful because the parents are backing you. They have your support, and they trust you. And so he's like, when I saw in my experience in youth ministry that I was having great relationships with the parents, I also saw growth in their children. He said, so for youth ministry, and the advice that I would give you in that scenario is, man, focus on the family. and and to pour into that. And so when you have the parents on your side, you're gonna find it a lot easier to find success as a youth minister. And the last question I asked, I said, Bromley, just what advice would you give to me as a youth minister right now? And like, what do I need to know? What's something that could really help me grow as a youth minister? He said the thing that I needed to learn to really find success, and it took a while to learn it, is that middle school and high schoolers are at two different stages developmentally in their life. That as much as it is easy to have them both together and to just give one sermon, or to just have them all running around in the same group, that it really messes with the impact of what you're trying to do. He's like, as much as you can, you should really try to split them up so that they can experience their own little groups together. And I thought this was great advice and well-needed advice and timely advice, because I've been dealing with some issues during my sermons on Wednesday nights for the kids of, middle schoolers. They'll crack up or they'll be joking in the middle of my class, and I'll have to get on to them. And then it'll mess up the whole flow. And then I look to, my right or my left, I have some seniors who they're just rolling their eyes and they're trying to listen. They're trying to dig into this, but the middle schoolers are being distracting. So I've decided that through that advice, to split up my classes as much as I can and to get some help. And that was the other advice that he gave me. He gave me two. One, to try to split them up, but two, that I can't do it alone, that I need help. That while this is my position, or that I want it to be my position, my youth ministry, that I can't do it alone. That I have to bring in parents and other people that can be successful with kids, so that I can give the kids the proper teaching and attention that they do need. And if I try to do it alone, ultimately I will experience failure. And that was a really good thing to hear, because I'm the type of person that feels that I can do it alone. I struggle with pride. And so hearing this was it was really well needed. And so I'm on the search for adults and parents that can help me in my youth ministry currently, so that I can be effective in what I do. I don't want my pride to get in the way. I want to be a useful tool to God and showing His love to these kids. And I can, if I let my pride get in the way, stop that from happening. And I never want to do that. I want to be the best youth minister I can be. So those were the questions that I asked. And man, it was just a lot of wisdom and a lot of growth. And we talked a lot more about some things, and he also showed me a lot of things as well. He took me over to our student center, and he said, look, he's like, you need to get here an hour early before class starts. And start setting out chairs and have it situated the way it needs to be situated before it gets here, because you don't want it to come across as disjointed or clumsily put together. That you want to show the kids that it is a put together place that they can come into and feel safe and feel secure, and also that that it's clean, and that this is a safe spot for them, and also a good place for them to be. But also, you never know who's going to walk in. And he said, honestly, he was like, if it's messy, and as an elder, if I walk in here and I see a messy room, I'm not going to think too highly of the environment, and that we might have a problem. And I said, yes, sir, I definitely understand that. But he also told me some stories of his time in youth ministry. He spoke about, baptizing kids. And he told me about this time that he didn't think anything of it, but he baptized a kid without telling his parents. And he said, man, he was like, that was a big learning experience because the parents were really upset. And he said, man, I had to calm them down, like, because he's like, they were really angry. He was like, but at the end of it, they were like, we're not mad that he was baptized. He was like, we just wanted to be there for it. And he was like, that was a powerful lesson for me to learn, that anytime that baptism comes up, that the kid wants to be baptized, to make sure you call their parents, to make sure that they're okay with it. And maybe they just want to be there, or maybe they're not okay with it. But he said, always go with the parents and what they want, because like he said in one of those questions, he's like, if you have a good relationship with the parents, the kids will keep coming around, and the parents will support you. So always ask the parents first. Don't just go on what the kid says. And I really appreciated that. So after the day, man, I just felt so blessed by what he had told me. And I love that I have access to Bromley anytime I need him. He's my elder. He's my administrator. And, man, he's been giving me this advice for the past 2 years. But being able to sit down with him and talk about these certain things, man, it was just such a blessing. And I've already seen blessings come from it. Like I said, we've started a class about hitting these big issues, and having his blessing over that class gave me a lot of confidence to do it. And so I can't wait to see what else comes from this advice that I got. I anticipate and I desire to work in youth ministry for just years. I love what I do, and I want to grow so that I can be the best youth minister that I can be. And it was just so good to hear him say that he believed in me, to give his support, but also to give me well-needed advice. So now I know how to approach, kids in general, but also the girls in my group. I know how to approach the parents of my group. I know that it's not always about what I say, but it's about being there for them. So that was important to know. So tonight I'm going to a football game to watch some of my kids. Some of them are in the band, and some of them play football at the local high school. So I'm already implementing some of the things he taught me. And I just can't wait to see how the youth ministry grows from me implementing the advice that he gave. I've been so grateful for this experience. And I think the main thing that I learned is through it is that I can't rely on my own knowledge. So sometimes I think I'm really smart, that I can do this. That's that pride getting in the way again. But I learned through this that there is wisdom that I just don't have, that I need to look to people that have gone through this before me, that I need to talk to these people, that I need to pick their brains about these things, and that I need to ask them about how they found success at the job that I'm now doing, and to hear from them and to grow from them. And if I don't do that, I don't think that I can be very successful at that. But I really do appreciate the advice that I talked about at the very beginning, that I have to make it my own, that advice may be really good, but I need to seek out ultimately what the Lord says, and ultimately what the Lord is calling me to do, and to be a relevant force for his kingdom, for these kids' lives. So thank you for this opportunity. And thank you for allowing me the chance to grow a little more as a youth minister. I've been super appreciative of this experience, and man, I'm just so grateful for the advice that David Bromley gave me. So thank you. I hope that these questions and the answers that I received also help the other people in this class, and maybe help some other people as well. So thank y'all, and I hope y'all have a great day.